you shouldn't impose your values, the things you're doing on other people. You shouldn't make them have to be accepting of your children. Like,
right.
For one, you like them better than anyone else.
Oh, that's so true.
Hey y'all, Amanda here. Welcome to entry 77 of Great Beer Adventure. 2 weeks ago, we looked at what it was like being pregnant in the beer world, greatbeeradventure.com/075. And today we take it a step further. Today we look at taking babies and kids to breweries and bars. As you're listening, you might find yourself chatting along with us. If you do, head over to Twitter @GreatBeerADV and let me know your thoughts. I'm really interested in hearing everyone's take on the topic.
Everybody, I am sitting in notorious in Portland, Maine. It's a chilly fall evening, and it's loud. It's a Wednesday night that we're recording tonight, and I don't know what it is, but everybody has been drawn inside. It is warm and cozy here tonight, I guess, so everybody's drawn inside, and they want to talk really loud. So you will hear them, and you'll just feel like you're sitting here at the table with us. I say us because I am not alone. I'm here with Christie Mahaffey. Did I do it?
You did.
Yay, I did it. And we're going to have a very interesting conversation that I'm shocked that we haven't talked about. But before we get to that, Christie, hi.
Hi, Amanda. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Will you tell all of my listeners a little bit about yourself?
Yes, so my name is Christie Mahaffey. I am one of the owners at Foundation Brewing Company. And I love beer, and I'm part of the brewery, and I also have an almost 11-month-old daughter.
Fabulous.
Yes.
Now, you've been part of the brewery for longer than 11 months.
That's right.
So she grew up in the brewery?
She has grown up in a brewery, yeah.
Yeah. When she was, does she still go in? Does she go in? Like, what is...
She does. So when she was itty bitty, pretty fresh, she came into the brewery a ton of the time. I just wore her, or Joel wore her, my spouse partner, or Spartner, if you will.
Partner. That's really cool. Like almost a Spartan. Like a Spartner.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, we have
fabulous.
our business partners. We've always considered each other partner, and so anyway, Joel or I would wear her. Certainly not around production, and that would be dangerous. But
right.
Otherwise, she was at the brewery. She was a big part of the tasting room. I was working there throughout pregnancy, so she's just always been a big part of that.
Yeah, and that actually is an amazing segue today. Folks, we're going to do things a little bit different. We're not going to go through all of our rounds. We are drinking beer, but we're not going to really talk about them too much, because what we're going to focus on today is babies/kids in breweries/bars. Christie, you and I were here at Navarre a few weeks ago, and there's a group here in Maine called the Maine Beer Mavens, and you put out a message like, who wants to meet me?
That's right.
Yes, and I was like, yeah, it was on my birthday. I was like, I'm going to go drink beer. But Janine was also here with her little one.
Yep.
And
we saw a couple little ones that day.
We did, yeah. But that got us started talking about like babies and being in bars and being at breweries, and I was shocked. I was like, oh my goodness, I can't believe I haven't done this yet.
Yep.
So I said, you want to do this? You said yes.
Absolutely. Here we are.
Here we are. So before we get into that, what was life like before the brewery? What did you do pre being a partner in this brewery?
So pre-brewery, I was a jack of all trades sort of thing, but right before the brewery, I was actually a mechanical engineer, or biomechanics, and
wow.
Doing consulting work, and I traveled a lot for that. And, there were really cool parts about it, and also things that I was ready to feel less serious about it. I saw that Joel was having so much fun with this brewery that we started, and about a year into the business, I decided to quit my consulting work and work full-time at the brewery.
Wonderful. And then about how far into the brewery did you get pregnant?
That would have been Actually, it was pretty soon after I started working at the brewery. I have to check my timeline now. So I started the winter it was January 2016.
Yep.
And then that spring I was pregnant.
Wow.
Yeah.
And now your partners in the brewery, not your Spartner, but your brewery partners,
Yes.
They have children as well.
That's right.
So did they come in at all? They're older, their children.
Their kids are older. You know what? They're so caught up in their activities.
Yeah, as they get older, I hear that happen.
Yeah. So they certainly come to events with us. They're very patient with all of us. And they're preteens. They've got things that are very interesting to them, and that is not beer.
But that must have set the stage, though, for you to be like, this is a great place for family.
Oh, for sure. And we've always been very family-oriented and like to model our business around that it's inclusive of all people. Certainly we can't serve anyone under 21, and that's obvious, but there's still a big cultural family piece to gathering around and having good conversation.
And I think that's really, as I move through the beer culture, I get to see it from all different angles as a podcaster, because I hunt people down, and I make sure that I see it from every different way. But one thing that I really notice is that, I don't know, I feel like beer used to be a beverage that you consumed to get drunk. Like, some people used to say that, like, that was like what your uncle drank. Like,
sure.
You know what I mean? But now it feels very family-centric. There are lots of events. There are lots of breweries. There's so much that's happening that feels more family-oriented.
Oh, absolutely. So now that you say that, I hadn't thought about it from that perspective. And I think craft beer has a very big piece to that, because it's no longer about a vessel for alcohol. It's rather something that you're enjoying. You're learning about the process of brewing. People love coming and doing tours, and they want to hear about when we use main ingredients, because they want to learn about agriculture. So it's so much bigger than alcohol, and that brings in the rest of the family.
Yeah, I really like that, the word craft. It used to really be talked about as micro breweries, these small breweries, but I love that craft has become the go-to word for the smaller breweries, because it is a craft.
Oh, for sure.
To make these things. And I've got 2 kids. I have a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old. And the 5-year-old's already starting to learn all about how to make beer.
Yeah.
She's really interested whenever we go to a brewery, like, what does that do? What does that do?
Yeah.
And I probably know more than the average bear, but still I'm like, okay, so that one, I think, like, even still, because you guys have so much equipment in there.
There's a lot of shiny stainless, for sure.
Lots of shiny stainless. You're like, I think that one's a fermenter. I don't know.
But that's a good point. Kids love to see the brewery. It's big, it's shiny, they're moving, you can see where the grain goes. Yeah. And then on top of that, if you have an actively fermenting tank, you get to see CO2 bubbling out.
I know.
And that is just so exciting to a little kiddo.
Yeah. All the bubbles, they're just there. They love bubbles. And then if you get one where the yeast is it's actually coming out and doing all that stuff, like sometimes your ex-neighbors, they moved on to, what is it? Is it Thompson Point?
Yep.
I always get Thomas and Thompson
Thompson's
confused.
Point. Yep.
Thompson's Point. I've seen so many times when the yeast, because they do like lots of yeasty things over there, and it's just going crazy in that bucket, and the kids are just like, look, it's growing. It's just getting bigger. It's really, not quite Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, because there's no candy unless Laura from La Creme Chocolat shows
That's
up.
right.
Right, and she's fabulous. And then there is candy. But it's like all these moving pieces and so much science and math behind it that I think that kids just are so intrigued by that. They're so curious by nature.
Oh, for sure.
And you're putting them in this thing with, like you said, shiny stuff. And it's just like, I want to touch it. I want to know how it works. And I think that more and more brewers are in that age range that they're having babies. And there are so many brewery kids.
Yeah, that's true. I've also found on the tasting room side of things, so not necessarily right up near the tanks, my daughter at 11 months is so, and well, long before that too, she's so intrigued by adult conversation, and she's learning about how you interact with people and just taking it all in. And I think kids do that. Right. So when they're part of a normal conversation, it gives them another way to learn.
Right. And it's great that you could actually see that happening. I love when you can see them learning and you can see their little brains working.
Yeah.
This is kind of a tangent, but there's a point to the story. My oldest is in kindergarten, and we don't have a lot of time in the morning. So on Sunday, we set out all of her clothes for the whole week. And an added benefit of that, for me, it's I can't deal with that in the morning.
I'm taking notes. This is a great idea.
But the added benefit that I had no idea, and I could see her learning it, was she now can keep track of which day of the week it is. They don't even have, like, the names on it, but she's like, oh, we've got 3 days left.
Yeah.
You know, and she actually is, only 1 day left to the weekend, you know, and we go out on adventures, and often we show up at a brewery. So obviously I'm pro kids in breweries.
Yeah.
But I kind of put some stipulations on that.
Sure.
When I want to go to a brewery, I try to do it midweek, or at least by, like, Friday, 6 p.m. the latest.
Okay.
Because the flip side, and I have heard this a few times, is like, beers are an adult beverage.
Yeah.
And that is true.
Yep.
And you can't go into a brewery, and if somebody's being belligerent, obviously, that's a different story. Yeah. But if they're having an adult conversation, you can't really be like, hey, my kids are here. And they're like, hey, I'm drinking alcohol. Leave me alone.
Right.
You know, so I think that you really have to think about, one, your child and what you want them around.
Sure.
And two, I think you have to be respectful for the people around you. If you go to a brewery and it's just a beer drinker's place and that's it, and there's never a child in there.
Yeah.
That's a different feel.
Yeah.
I haven't come across a lot of those.
So I think that's a good point. And what we see in our tasting room, at least, I think it's a very welcoming culture, and we do, you know, we're not open late like a bar, so maybe there's some very clear differences. So I was thinking about that. There's this gut check for me of, am I comfortable with my kiddo in this scenario, but maybe not this one, and why or why not?
Yeah.
So as I'm getting ready for my day today and doing my homework well in advance of meeting with you tonight, I thought, okay, how could I articulate what is feeding into that gut piece?
Yeah.
And I found the daytime, certainly it captures more of a comfortable space for having a kid around. A big one for me is actually a volume check. So if I'm in a bar Friday at 10 o'clock, that's not passing the gut check. And it's, you know, I'm usually having sensory overload myself, and I'm sure my kid would.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with that.
You know, and when she was really, really small and was in the little pod, as long as it wasn't, again, that noise piece, if it wasn't so loud that it would be uncomfortable or dangerous for her hearing, then it was great. She could sleep through anything. We could be out a little later. Right. And as she gets older, I can already see that bedtime really helps her a lot.
Yeah.
So that already cuts out a lot of the late night stuff that I would probably be less comfortable with, depending on where we were.
Right. No, I hear you on that.
You know?
Yeah.
And being respectful of, like you said, other people and their conversations, and not pushing myself on my expectations there. So if it's something I'm uncomfortable with, then I should leave.
Right. Yeah, I get that. And I think that's really important. You know, I want to be able to take my children places with me. Not every place, because I love them, but I like mommy and daddy time and just mommy time, like, so they're not connected to my hip. But I like being able to have them with me in some of these situations, because I'd like to go to a brewery more often than just the once every 6 months date that we get to have.
Yeah.
But I think it's really important as parents or just people in general that it's important to remember you shouldn't impose your values, the things you're doing on other people. You shouldn't make them have to be accepting of your children. Like,
right.
For one, you like them better than anyone else.
Oh, that's so true.
Like, you're like, these are the sweetest little angels in the whole world. Not everybody feels that way.
Yeah.
So I think
that's totally cool.
Yeah, that's completely cool, because I have my rose-colored glasses on, and I get that. Like, I get it. But I think that's really, important thing is, like, like a bigger message is, like, feel how you want to feel. Like, don't force that onto me.
Sure.
And I think that's kind of where transitioning from these, like, family breweries, because here in Maine, for the most part, that's what they are. There's a lot of, like, these craft breweries are really family-centric, really open culture. Like that, there's no more than a handful that I can think of that I wouldn't feel okay taking my kids to. But then we move over to a different conversation a little bit when we start talking about bars.
Right.
And just like beer has changed, bars have too.
Yep.
There's certain bars I would not take my kids into, no matter what time of day it was.
Sure, fair enough.
But then there's places like Navarre that we're at right now.
Yeah.
And right before you got here, there was actually a baby. My kids were sleeping, so, like, my gut check was like, oh, it's bedtime.
Yeah.
But, not all kids need 37 hours of sleep before they're ready to go again. Like,
right.
I know that there's not that many hours in the day, people I know, but I have little sleep hounds. But...
And I'm jealous of that.
I understand how lucky I am. I get it. I don't want to jinx it, so we'll knock on some wood.
Well, there's a trade-off, though, because then you have some time constraints, right?
We do have time. And that's the thing is, like, we were preparing for kindergarten, and so we had to start moving her bedtime up. But that really dictated a lot of our summer.
Sure.
Because it's still bright, beautiful. You're ready to go at 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
The kids need to be in bed my kids need to be in bed at 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
And they stay in bed until 7:30 or 8 o'clock, which is fabulous. But still, it's like, yeah, at night, we better have stuff to do at home. Or one of us goes out, that's our only option.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we could get a babysitter, but then you're like, paying somebody an astronomical fee to sit there while your kids sleep.
Right.
Yeah, like Navarre, they're parents here too. The owners are parents.
Yeah.
And it has a different feel in the summertime.
Yeah.
There are kids running around on that deck all over the place.
Oh yeah. Well, and that day that we were here with the Maine Beer Mavens, and it was there wasn't any question about showing up with the kiddo. And we had a great time, and adult conversation in the sense that, not that we're talking about sex, drugs, and rock and roll the whole time, but that we could talk about real things and not necessarily what was on Sesame Street, but having
that is
just normal conversation.
Yeah. I actually found with my oldest daughter when she was younger, I completely lost my ability to talk to adults. Because I was trying to get a teaching job at the time, so I wasn't, like, out with people a lot. So it was really, like, counting to 3 and saying go so much, and that's it. Yeah. Trying to get back into the ability to have real conversations.
Yeah.
Really difficult.
Yeah.
So it's nice. But, yeah, I feel like there's more places around where it's acceptable.
Oh, absolutely. And I'd say Portland, Maine, because that's where I live and mostly where I go. Yeah. But really, so many places throughout Maine have that feel where the whole family is welcome, and you can have just a good time talking and enjoying different kinds of beverages or food. And
and I think that, I even traveled up to Canada this summer. And there was that feel. There were certain places where you not knowing them, you kind of ask ahead of time. There's a lot of great forums out there for beer drinkers, and you can say, hey, I'm going to Montreal. Where are some good kid-friendly? And there seems to be a really supportive community where you can people be like, oh, make sure you hit up this place, and this place. And it did. It really felt inclusive. There was a couple places we walked into where we were like, okay, one taster each and we're out. I don't know. I think it's all part of the culture, and I even think that the establishments that are selling the beer are changing along with them.
Yeah.
In fact, I believe down in New Hampshire, I think it's called Whim. Have you heard? Yeah, Whim Craft Beer Cafe. It is baby friendly, and I know that a kid and baby friendly. And on the same note, Little Tap House is quite. Both of those places have I know that Little Tap Houses is called Bring Your Own Baby.
That's right. On Sundays, at least once a month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, by the time that they started that, my oldest was not a baby, couldn't be buckled to the front, so I have not yet to get there. And then Whim is actually having Soggy Bottom Halloween Party, where it's you're bring your baby to a Halloween party. It's at a time that kids can come, but they're encouraging it.
Yeah.
They want to bring in those families too.
Yeah.
It really feels like the culture is a young family type of place.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's more inclusive. So you're not, by bringing families in, you're not excluding other people.
Right,
you're
not saying
opening the
can't
community.
go.
Right.
Just know that there will be babies here. So if you're allergic to babies, it might not be the right time of day for you to come in. Another big thing, though, around it was that Jessica Rhodes, who is another podcaster, she does Roads to Success, a great show if anybody would like to listen to that. But she does, she said it depends on what time of day it is.
Sure.
And that was a lot. People really love bars and breweries. So I put this out on my Facebook page. Portland Hunt and Alpine Club, they said that, they're a young family.
They're great. Yep.
And so they want to have their daughter be part of it.
Right.
And I think that's really what we're seeing. Lisa, who's part of Gagan Brothers up in Bangor, she said, as in any situation, as long as the parents are being responsible parents and not neglecting the kids, why not? It's not a big deal at all in Europe, and instills a responsible view on drinking.
Absolutely.
And I think that's really important. I think that, it is about really teaching kids about alcohol, beer specifically, not to just be this, did you call it earlier something like a vehicle or... Oh,
just a vehicle to get drunk.
Yeah. That's not really what it is at all.
Yeah, it certainly doesn't have to be, and I think most of the time, for most of the world, it isn't.
Yeah.
That's my rosy perspective.
Yeah.
Because I want people to drink our beer and enjoy it for what it is and for the craft of it.
Right. I must say that another added benefit of teaching your kids to only like really good beer. Well, first off, as an aside, my 2-year-old will not let you drink a beer around her without smelling it first. She loves smelling it. She's going to be able to be a Cicerone by the time she's her first day that she can start drinking. She'll be a Cicerone because then she'll be like, oh, I get that taste. I get that. All right, let's pass the test. An added benefit for me is that when they go off to college, they're only going to have been surrounded by really expensive beer.
Right.
I mean, it's kind of like it is. Your craft beer, it's better quality, and it's more money. You guys, I understand that a lot goes into it, so you have to charge a lot.
Yeah.
But as a consumer, you can't buy you can't buy a 30 rack of craft beer.
Yeah.
I think that might take a whole paycheck to buy a 30 rack of Epiphany. That would break the bank. So that means that she's going to have to, they're going to have to be responsible.
Yeah.
It's an added benefit that they have no idea is coming. And I am ruining them to all cheap beer for the rest of their lives.
Oh, that's good.
So I really wish, as much as I probably would have felt frustrated and wanted to maim somebody a little bit. I really wish we could have brought somebody in that has the other perspective of like,
Oh, for sure.
babies aren't allowed, because I don't get it. I wish I did.
I'm sure I certainly can't capture every perspective.
Right.
So I'm an older mom. There was a time in my life where I was not interested in having kids, and they freaked me out. Babies were scary.
Not as scary as dolls. Those things are like...
That's true.
They've got those soulless dead eyes.
Oh, yeah, they're not allowed in the house.
No. Ugh.
So what I was uncomfortable with around babies, say 15 years ago, it was actually, I would be more uncomfortable if it was all about the baby. And that's, again, that's part of what I like with today's culture, certainly what we see in Portland, where the babies and the kids, it's just part of the community. It's one piece, and the focus isn't entirely on, look, I have a baby in the bar. It's, look, we're living our lives, we're enjoying this craft beer, and the kids are learning. We're learning from each other with intelligent conversation, maybe not always intelligent conversation.
Nobody can have an intelligent conversation all the time.
But it's part of the big picture.
Right.
It's not one piece that has all this focus on it. And that's one other perspective where I came from it, with past experience.
It's funny when you were talking about that. I don't know if it was quite a comment or just not really mean, but another person that actually commented on my post was my editor, John Buchanan. He is lovely, and he will edit this up super nicely for all of you. But he actually put a video clip from, I think it's Sweet Home Alabama. Do you remember that show? It had Reese Witherspoon.
I do.
Yeah, and there's a spot in it where Reese's character is saying to this other woman, is like, oh, hey, how are you? You have a baby in a bar. And it's like, it's not that anymore. Now, there are establishments where if you were to put your baby in the Bjorn
Sure.
and walk into that, that would be like you have a baby in this bar.
Yeah.
But here, quite often, there'll be at least one or two babies stuck to somebody's front.
Yeah.
It's just they're here.
Right.
And you acknowledge them. Oh, hi, cutie. And then you're like, what are we drinking?
Yeah. Well, so there again, they're little sponges. So maybe that's part of the gut check. What do you want your kid to be absorbing at that moment? And if it's sitting around Novari Res or the Thirsty Pig and, or Little Tap, any number of these awesome places around here, and they're absorbing the conversation and the lights and that people are getting together and caring about each other.
Right.
To me, that's a great message.
It really is, yeah.
If it's a bar that's more of, what you'd picture is like, I don't know, I'm
like a dive bar kind of thing?
Well, not just if it's a place where you're uncomfortable with with your kid learning the behaviors that you're seeing, then that doesn't pass the gut check.
Right, yeah. There are certain family events that I actually don't go to because they don't pass my gut check. And it's really, for some of my family members, it's actually really strange for them because my kids are in breweries and bars so often that they're slightly offended. But the difference is that the conversations are a lot different.
Right.
The way the alcohol is consumed is a lot different.
Right.
And I think that you're right. You do have to think about the people that are around you, who's going to be there. Just to think, back to not imposing your own thoughts and beliefs on somebody else. I have had to change my plans because my kids have been having, like, a horrendous day.
Right? Yeah.
You wake up and you're so excited. It's Saturday. We're going to the brewery. And they wake up and they're like, I hate you and I hate the world. Don't take them to a brewery.
Yeah.
Because even though it really stinks that you don't get to go, it would be really worse for all the other people there.
That's right.
And there are days
when your kids are like, you can pretty much like see in everything they do, they're just flipping you off.
You can see it.
Like the whole day, they're just walking around. If they knew how to do it, they would just have a giant finger flipped off at you the whole day. You're like, I don't know why you hate me right now, but I get it. We can stay here. And
Well, and then I'm forced to stop and think of the days when I have days like that. I'm like, oh yeah, that's normal. This happens.
Right.
And it's okay.
Right. And on those days, you don't want to be forced to do something that... Right?
That's when Joel knows not to take me out in public, and that's okay.
Exactly. You know, there's like the days where, people just look at you and you're like, oh, we're not having a date tonight, are we? No, we're not. I really feel like, and mine can change from morning to night. I feel like I have this threshold for people touching me.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, like... I love loving my children. Like, I love it so much.
Yeah.
But there's certain days where they just want to, like, not really hold hands, not really, like, hug. They want to just grab my arm and pull it down the entire day. By the end of the day, I don't want to be near anyone that might possibly think about touching me.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you're right. We have those days. We can't expect these little tiny bundles of... joy
and sometimes pissiness
to be ready to do things where and one brewery that I've wanted to go to for a while is I've wanted to go to Treehouse. I've heard a lot of great things about their beer. I have not had it yet, and I would really like to try it.
Sure.
But let's talk through what that day would look like. Get up in the morning, feed them some food, and then be like, all right, now we're going to get in the car and drive 2 or 3 hours. And then we're going to stand in line for 2 or 3 hours. And then we're going to drive home for 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah.
You ready? They're going to be like, no.
That's a tough day.
Right?
Yeah.
Back when my husband and I were dating, we would stay in line. Like, for long periods of time. Like, I was actually outside in crutches with a shower bag on because I had, recently had surgery to get Kate the Great. It was cold. It was, a rainy, late February, early March day, and it was like...
Oh, my gosh, I may have been at that same one.
Yeah? Right? But you did it. You got your little ticket. You went. People got hotels. We went and sat in our vehicle and listened there. The only station we could get was some Bollywood station. I don't know why it was playing, but it was
that's awesome.
It was fabulous. Every time you hear any music, you're that. Oh, Kate the Great.
Yeah.
We can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
And I just think that it's about thinking about everybody involved, being pro, planning it. I did wait in line for Seed from Bissell Brothers one year. And during us waiting in line, I think I actually saw Vanessa Bissell have her little son in a pack and play, and she pulled out the wheels and would pull it through the...
Yeah.
But you pack snacks. Yep. If the wait's going to be longer than 15 minutes, you put snacks in the bag, and then you put a little something they can write on, and then you make sure that you have a smart something, but that's at the bottom as a last resort. So I think
yeah. You take. See, I haven't had these joys yet. I'm again taking notes.
I don't know if you want to take notes from me. I have a 5-year-old who I make take a shower and get ready all by herself in the morning. I don't know if I'm stellar mom quality right here. Maybe on Twitter, people can reach out to me at GreatBeerADV and let me know your side of things. What do you think about babies in bars and breweries and all of these other places and waiting in beer lines? What are your thoughts and feelings? I'd love to hear them because I think we're in agreement.
Yeah.
I think you and I personally are in agreement that depending on the place, depending on the time, depending on your gut check, depending on the people around you.
Yeah.
There's a lot of factors, but it's not no, I would never take my baby to a bar.
Yeah, no, definitely not. And so the other side from the brewery owner perspective is what can we do to make this more enjoyable? And quite frankly, having families as well as everyone from different walks of life, I think makes it a more enjoyable tasting room experience So making sure they're changing tables. I know tons of places, bars around Portland have them.
Yeah.
We have them.
There was actually just something went through where it's nationally mandated that there have to be changing
I saw that.
in men's rooms
Yes.
now. That makes me so happy. I don't always want to change the diaper.
That's right.
I really do think that changing a diaper, there's a lot of time it's not fun, but a lot of time it's this bonding experience. And if, you're taking care of them, you're loving them, you're providing for them.
Yeah.
And if it's only the mom all the time,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Besides that, I don't want to change the diaper all the time. We are almost diaper-free in my house.
Oh, nice.
Just night times, very rarely. It's good. So on that whole note, like you were saying, like Tim Bissell agrees. He says kids, babies, fur babies, all allowed. Tim Bissell with not a Bissell brother.
Nope.
Nice Brewing out in Limerick. And Kelly Dorsey from Mass Landing. They actually, you were saying, what can you guys do to make it? They have juice boxes and coloring books for days.
Yeah.
For days. She says when babies are happy, parents are happy, and when parents are happy, they drink beer.
There you go. I would be curious to hear responses to this because it's an interesting question, and there is a clear shift in what people are doing compared to what we saw maybe 10 years ago. Maybe that's just my life perspective has shifted compared to what I saw 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But we love families and seeing them out, babies in bars, kiddos in bars, if you pass that gut check.
Have you ever heard the saying, like, I was a perfect mom before I had kids?
Oh, yeah.
That was me. I was such a good mom before I had kids. And I feel like probably most of the people, I could be wrong, there may be parents out there that are like, no, this is my zen space.
Yeah.
I don't want any kids around. Which I get. When I'm out, I don't necessarily want somebody else's kid, like, yelling at me. Like, I get that. But maybe that's their sanctuary. But I feel like most of the people just haven't had kids either yet or are not going to have kids, and kids aren't their thing.
Yeah, I see it as a full community perspective. So some kids, no kids. If it's your kid, you got to look out for it. Otherwise, have a good time.
Right. Well, cheers to you, Christie. Thank you so very much for sitting down with me and chatting about this. It's been long overdue.
Oh, thank you. It was lots of fun.
Bye, everybody.
A huge thank you to Christie Mahaffey for joining me today. I love being able to sit down with beers and chat with people about various topics. Podcasting is so amazingly awesome. Thank you to all my listeners for giving me this opportunity. You guys rock. Next week, I get to learn about the newest brewery to open in Maine. If you all, our fabulous co-adventurers, would like to support the show, check out our Patreon page. For less than the cost of a beer, you can show us some love. Go to greatbeeradventure.com/support. If you want to see even more from our adventures, follow us on Instagram @GreatBeerAdventure. And be sure to subscribe to the show. That way, you won't miss a thing. Great Beer Adventure is part of the Great Pint Society. Cheers.